I got a notification on my phone today. Apparently, a year ago was the day we accidentally became arms dealers.
Why are you quoting this?
Why am I quoting this?
Yes.
It's not, no, because you know, like that app that like reminds you, like, hey, you posted this day or whatever.
Oh, the
like,
memory.
yeah, there was like a photo that I remember posting.
Oh my
when
God,
we were
you're
in San
talking
Diego.
about what? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay, this is embarrassing.
before we got to San Diego.
That's been a year?
But a year ago today, yeah.
Wow.
From this time recording, at least, yeah.
And they still haven't put me in Gitmo?
Nope.
Damn, we suck at this.
Yeah.
You want to tell them the story? Should I?
I'll start it.
Go ahead.
So we're driving down to San Diego.
You're driving.
I'm driving.
You're driving. I won't take responsibility for this.
Okay. That's
You're
fair.
driving. I'm talking. You're driving.
That's fair.
Yes.
Hey, we're both talking.
You're both talking.
We can do a very heated discussion
Yes.
about some fucking shit. I don't even remember. But we were shitting on America hard, dude. Hard.
Yeah.
And we just kept driving, and then all of a sudden we're in Mexico. And I don't know if we were trying to go to San Diego. So we overshot San Diego by what? About like 20, 30 miles at least?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was bad.
We were trying to go to like La Jolla. Like we weren't even trying to go to like downtown.
So we accidentally drove into Mexico.
Yeah.
I accidentally drove into Mexico.
You did.
And I was like, fuck, this could be forever. The line's always so long to get back into Mexico. I feel like a fucking idiot. And I'm like putting it all on me. And then you say to me,
hey, just wanted to let you know that I do have a CCW and I am literally carrying a live loaded pistol.
So we smuggled the gun into Mexico.
Yes.
And then when we got back, nothing happened.
Yeah, we smuggled it back in.
Yeah, just so easily.
What's crazy is we didn't have passports.
No.
And there were dogs. And
there were dogs, and it came up to our car. We said hi to the dog.
Yeah.
And we waved to the dog.
Yes. And we just basically were like, oh, sorry. Like, we just made a mistake and we drove into Mexico and we're retarded. And hey, the driver's white. And then they're like,
oh, go ahead, guy.
Okay. Welcome back.
And that's the end of the story.
Yep. That's it.
That's how shitty our gun laws are. Yep. The one place they're supposed to check for a gun, and they didn't check for a gun.
Yes. Welcome to Liptards and Shy.
My name is Max.
And I'm Monsoor.
Here, we discuss liberalism and what's stopping its progress, all while drinking way too much Arabic tea.
Which is called Shy.
So, come on in.
So, it's the 1780s. And we used to tar people. We used to have slaves. We used to not let anybody who wasn't a white land-owning man own property. The heliocentric model of the solar system was not fully accepted.
Right.
The Russian Tsar would not be deposed for another 130 years. The Ottoman Empire is still around. Are you getting my point? You'd still die of...
It sounded really fun. Oh,
yeah. You'd die if you fucking tripped and scratched yourself because there's no penicillin and there's no antibiotics and there's no vaccines.
Right, it's bad. It's bad.
Yeah,
sorry.
It's dog shit.
Sorry, that was my white.
Yeah.
That was my whiteness.
No, this is like, it's a shitty way to live even if you're white, but it's complete dog shit if you weren't. If you were just like anything but a straight white Gentile man. Which back then meant that like you were only from a certain neighborhood from England. Like, you know.
Right. And I had to fuck a girl named Mary.
Yes. Only.
I could only fuck one woman named Mary. And Mary's teeth are...
I would say 70%.
Missing.
They're
70%. Missing. Yeah. They're not there. Because dentistry hasn't been invented.
Yes. So this is the framework. This is the narrative. This is the time period in which basically, how do I describe them? Constitutional originalists believe that we should be interpreting laws.
Yeah.
We should be interpreting amendments written during this time. So we come to the Second Amendment, which was written around like the 1780s, and we have to ask ourselves the question of, hey, does this new regulation have some kind of historical analogousness or analogy to gun regulations? You know, the ones that you used to have to like jerk off the little pebble ball into it and shoot once every minute.
You gotta like shove black
Those
cocaine
guns
up its nose.
Right.
Do a rain dance.
Right. And then you got to pray to some
and then
deity,
and then you can kill the Indian.
right, and take their land. And so modern gun laws have to pass this thing called the Buren test, which is literally like, oh, how is this law historically analogous to 17th and 18th century gun regulations?
The same time period, just for clarification, you're Arab.
Yeah.
I'm mostly white and mixed with a little bit of other shit.
Which is too much, by the way.
This is the same time we would be labeled as 3/5 of human beings.
Yeah. Or just not allowed.
Or just not allowed in the country. Yeah. Black people would be 3/5 of human beings. Most laws in the South had something called the 1 drop rule. Which is that if you had 1 drop of non-white blood, you're fucked. You ever heard of a play called the Octoroon?
No.
It's I forget the majority of the play, but it centers around a woman who is 1/8 black. She is as white as I am, but she has like curly hair, and she's sold in an auction off in slavery just because she's 1/8 black. It sparked like a big protest inside in New York around like 1860s or something like that.
1/8?
1/8.
That's not even recognizable.
No, it's nothing.
How the fuck do people figure that out?
If a white person says to you, like, I'm marginalized, I'm 1/8 this, you would say,
go fuck yourself.
Exactly. As you should.
Yeah.
As you should.
So
that's how crazy shit was back then.
Well, this is how crazy shit is now. And I ain't joking around or posing a hypothetical. This is an actual test that the Supreme Court and the Federal Circuit, which, as we spoke about in a previous episode, is completely off the fucking deep end. There's been a complete conservative takeover during the Trump years. And they're straight up, I mean, this is beyond the pale. Crazy. I mean, like, it's just beyond the pale. They're like, oh, we have to. I mean, I actually listened to Supreme Court arguments, and these people have to frame, when the Department of Justice comes and tries to put federal legislation forward, they have to make a case to the Supreme Court saying, well, this is similar to a 1638 Massachusetts colony law. Are you fucking crazy?
One of the most archaic things about the legal system is that it's based on precedent.
I mean,
and the Supreme Court's main function over the last couple of years has been to overturn precedent, which is a good thing in some instances.
It's a good thing.
Like we overturn
and
segregation because of it. But
except the problem is it's inherently hypocritical for the originalists to overturn precedent, which is what they did with
that's a really good
the
point.
SEC, which is what they did with Roe v. Wade, which is what they've done, they will do with
gun laws are next.
And so it's just baffling to me how, and people, if someone will say to me, well, you're being a little too, hyperbolic here. No, I'm not. I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm being quite literal. And I'll tell you why. It's because, like, I don't know, like a couple weeks ago, the Fifth Circuit just overturned a ban on domestic violence, on people who are convicted of domestic violence being able to own a gun. So to clarify, basically the Fifth Circuit said, hey, people who have been convicted of domestic violence, no, it's actually unconstitutional for the government to deny you the right to have a gun. Which is absolutely baffling to me, because domestic violence is one of those things where it is actually, like, according to a New York Times study,
it's a huge statistical indicator of whether or not you're about to fuck some shit up with a gun.
I don't want to be petty. It is not just a huge indicator. It is the greatest.
It is the greatest.
It is the greatest indicator. I'm going to read a quote from the New York Times
Mm-hmm.
report. It's stating a study. It says, quote, a felony domestic violence conviction is the greatest single predictor of violent crime among men.
There's some stats here too that go along with that. 60% of mass shootings.
So domestic violence, the people who it's saying 60% of mass shootings, the perpetrator has a history of domestic violence.
So 60% of mass shooting has a history of domestic violence.
Yeah.
30% of child firearm deaths. 50% of women killed by a partner.
But yeah, an intimate partner, they're killed by guns.
Killed by guns.
Yeah. That's 65% for black women.
Of black women, 75% for indigenous women. And
by the way, if you don't give a shit about any of that, like if you don't give a shit about 50% of women being killed by their intimate partner by guns, if it's 65% for black women, 75% for indigenous women, if you don't give a shit about any of that, and you just care about, like, I don't know, police, for example, dude, domestic dispute calls make up 41% of fatal calls that police respond to. It is single-handedly the most dangerous call that police make.
Absolutely.
So if you care about men in blue,
it's not only because of the frequency in which they have to do it, because 41% is a fuck ton. Like, it's, I think between that and traffic stops, the two most dangerous things. But domestic disputes in particular are way more dangerous because you're going into a house.
Right.
You don't know what's in that house. They can have way more shit in a house that can kill a cop You can hide actual people, you can
Right.
hide firearms, you can hide knives or whatever the fuck it is, and then you can't in a car. So it's dangerous for police officers too.
So, why did the Supreme Court state that it should overturn a ban on people with domestic violence convictions? It's because it failed to meet the Buren test. It argued that the framers, who wrote the Bill of Rights and the Constitution in the 1780s, could not have possibly imagined, or there were no historical analogs to the government banning people with domestic violence from owning a gun. Why? Because it wasn't considered a crime back then.
Yeah.
It was totally okay to hit your
There
fucking
was no
wife.
domestic violence. It's just sometimes women talked. That was the thing.
That was
That was-
literally the
that was
way
what
it
they called-
was. Yeah. I mean, first of all,
Mary got lippy.
it was in law until I believe the 50s that men were the quote master of the house. I mean,
That's some cringy shit,
it's
dude.
it's I
That's
mean,
wild.
literally the modern day 21st century Supreme Court argues, hey, there is no historical analogs to the government banning or restricting people with domestic violence convictions from owning guns in the 7th and 18th century.
Mhm.
So we shouldn't allow it now.
That'd be like if you want to do race discrimination laws based off like Jim Crow South
I mean,
as like the basis.
Yeah.
We're like, this is what we're gonna go off of. If it's worse than this, then it's bad. But
mean,
anything less is good.
it's just
This
it's,
is the metric they're using.
I can't even think of anything how as absurd as that. I mean, I guess the best way I can relate it to is saying that like you know, women don't have a right to an abortion because the Constitution doesn't talk about it. Well, in the 17th century,
There was no abortion.
women weren't fucking even full citizens.
No,
They didn't even have legal rights.
and there was the science wasn't even there.
Yeah, there was also no concept of an abortion. Yes,
Like there was a complete shift in thinking
when this shit
because
became
of
possible.
advances. Yeah.
Right.
Once they saw women in an office like actually being productive, they were like, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't beat her.
Jesus.
Yeah.
What you know what? What a modern vision.
Yeah. Hey, don't hit her. I need her to type my notes.
Now come in here, toots.
Come here, Peggy.
What?
Yeah. Don't hit her. I was gonna hit her.
I mean, this is so just to to clarify, this Supreme Court case overturned these bans in 3 or 4 states, and people will say, oh, don't get your panties in a bun or whatever the hell the phrase is, because it's only affecting 4 states. Well, first of all, one of the states is Texas, which is the second most populous or the third most populous state. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Also has a fuck ton of guns.
right.
Like there's a shit ton of guns.
Yeah.
I can't even emphasize how many guns are in Texas.
It is an
dude.
ass load of guns,
Yeah.
and I that is an understatement, But what really captures the ethos of the American sensibility when it comes to guns is not just the sense of entitlement because of the Second Amendment, but the idea that it is one of the only things in America where we can sacrifice lives to it. When planes crash, we have legislation. We say these things must be dealt this way,
Right.
certain safety procedures, we have to have these certain restrictions, we have to create these certain organizations. No plane deaths are acceptable.
When cars crash, cars manufacturers get looked into.
Right.
They get
We have to have
re-
seatbelt laws, you have to
there's
have airbags,
recalls.
you have to these exactly. But then when it comes to guns, which by the way are instruments designed for the sole purpose of killing, we're like, I guess that's the cost of doing business.
It's ridiculously easy to pull a trigger too.
Now, it is important to just to really frame the narrative here that a lot, and this entire episode is going to be about this, but the national conversation makes it feel like there's really two sides. Like two sides believe in no kind of gun control, and then the other side vehemently wants to take away guns. And the reality of the situation is that most Americans agree on a lot of shit. And the way the
Yeah.
national conversation is framed prevents that from happening. Now, I'm just going to ask, I'm actually not sure entirely. In an ideal world,
Okay.
what would be your situation with gun laws?
Ideally,
Ideally. Just putting
Mm.
politics aside, just if you had the ability to decide.
are we allowed to beat women? No, I'm kidding.
God damn it, no.
No, okay. Ideal world.
Yes.
I'm the emperor for a day. No Second Amendment. Like straight up abolish it. Guns
Yeah,
are legal
okay.
for everybody.
So we're on the same page.
Which means that police don't have guns either.
Yeah, like patrol officers don't carry guns.
Right.
So we're like England or New Zealand or Norway or some shit.
Yeah, they can have big sticks. Like giant
I mean,
stick.
there's a reasonable debate on whether like, okay, SWAT can have it. Like, how do they deal with the cartels? Whatever. But I don't think police officers have guns, and I don't think
All right.
citizens should have guns.
Yeah.
Right. There should be no Second Amendment. Second Amendment.
Well, police officers only have guns because citizens have guns. Like when every time you talk to a cop, it'd be like, "Why do you feel the need for a gun?" And I was like, "Well, because everyone else has a fucking gun." Other countries, cops don't have guns because their citizens don't have guns. We have
Right.
the most guns in the world. I want to say, just numbers wise. I don't know about per capita.
There's no way we don't. There's just no way we don't.
Yeah, we have too many fucking people and too many
90
guns.
million guns in this country. We have more guns than people.
We have more guns than people.
We have more guns than people.
Where are we at right now, population wise, nationally?
320, I
like
believe.
330, 320?
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. We have
60 million more?
we have more guns than people.
We can give everybody a gun and then there's 60 million to spare.
Yeah.
That's insane, dude.
It is.
That's insane.
It's quite difficult to fathom that number, but it is a ridiculous. It's a stupid, absurd amount of guns. Now, I'm full
Ridiculous.
disclosure to the audience. I have a concealed carry weapon in California, which is very difficult to get that permit.
Especially for you. That's
Yeah.
a story, by the way,
Yeah,
for another
that
time.
is definitely a story. But I carry a gun.
Yeah.
So I'm a gun owner,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I am willing to get rid of the Second Amendment if the police lose their guns too. Okay, but in a now we have to bring the politics back to it. I firmly believe that the liberal wing of America has lost the war on guns, and I don't know why. We have totally surrendered. I'm a big believer that we should be pushing to eradicate the Second Amendment, and we should be pushing to eradicate police from having guns.
I am too.
And
Yeah,
I don't
100%.
think that is such a politically impossible goal.
That's where me and you disagree. I think we need to need at least another 10, 15 years to get there.
No. That is certain. But
And even then, I think it's
it
going
is
to be
the
a
third.
crazy uphill battle.
People act like it is a third rail of politics.
As of right now, it absolutely is.
And it's the third rail of politics because that's where the third rail is where all the power is. This is a real centrally important concept to the American society. And a lot of these concepts that are centrally important to the fabric of society were considered off limits until they no longer did. And the reason they weren't is because usually the radical left made these things possible. It was considered impossible for women to gain the right to vote. And over the course of 30 years of the suffrage movement, it got pushed by states and more states and more states. And after 10 or so states, there was this massive launch where it pushed us to nationalization.
Right.
The same thing with gay marriage, the same thing with marijuana, the same thing with integration. What's another two other concepts that we're seeing a ginormous shift in the third rail? Social Security, which back in the year 2000.
Yeah, the other way, though.
What do you mean?
All those things you just talked about were towards what we would consider progress.
Towards progress.
Now it's
Right. Now there's a conversation about
getting rid of it.
Getting rid of it.
Yeah.
Right. Something that I consider as progress is that the United States, though is still a majority favorable towards Israel, it has now become far more politically acceptable. And we're starting to see Pew and Gallup polling showing that more and more Americans sympathize with the Palestinians than they do with the Israelis. That 10 years ago would have ended your career.
Yeah, and at the very least, just in the normal conversation, if you say you're anti-Israel now, no one's going to look at you like you're a fucking Nazi.
Right.
Whereas 10 years ago, someone's going to be like, yo, chill,
Yeah.
Hitler.
Yo, exactly.
God.
Exactly. And there was no conflation between being anti-Zionist and anti-Jewish
and
or anti-Semitic, right?
Yeah.
And so I think there is a total political movement for that. And I think that the most radical elements of the liberal movement push the line of compromise forward year after year, year after year, year after year. There needs to be some wings of our movement who openly support this. I openly support this. I, as a gun owner. But as long as that law, that amendment is in the Constitution, then there needs to be a serious study. There needs to be a serious study.
This is the main thing.
Right, of what the fuck do we do when we live in an America where people have a constitutionally protected right to bear arms? Now, by the way, the Second Amendment states that a well-regulated militia has the right to bear arms, and that we can't know for sure, but the founders didn't imagine that some guy in a Dodge Durango was a
well-regulated militia.
Right. But of course, these constitutional originalists have no problem in DC versus Heller in 2005 claiming that, oh yeah, the framers definitely meant that a single dude owning a gun is the same thing as a well-regulated
well-regulated
militia. Right. So
The word militia has been interpreted
let's be
so
very clear.
fucking loosely.
These justices in the past 30 years don't give a fuck about the law. They don't give a fuck about the Constitution. They don't give a fuck about originalism. They will lie and say whatever the fuck they want to get whatever laws they want passed.
because they are paid for.
There is no, I am not a, we had this fundamental belief that the Supreme Court was above politics. And in my opinion, it never has been. And I think it really went off the deep end with Gore, with Bush v. Gore. I think basically since Bush v. Gore, the Supreme Court has lost any real sense of legitimacy.
That's where the shift where like the importance of that battleground definitely came into
Right.
play. Yeah, 100%.
Like Bush v. Gore, Hobby Lobby, Citizens United, literally fuck up after fuck up after fuck up. And now the major fuck up is DC Heller and New York Rifle and Pistol.
The problem is that time you just said, that's when it became serious for Republicans. It probably got serious for, got serious for Democrats.
Right.
It got serious for Republicans after we passed their initially Roe v. Wade.
Right. I mean, they've been trying to stack.
Because they've been trying to stack back, but they're like, all right, we need people on our court.
Right.
And they've been trying.
And again, the Supreme Court is one of the most undemocratic. It is by definition extremely undemocratic, you know? And so
No qualifications.
we personally, for me as a liberal.
You can rape people and be on the Supreme Court?
Oh, yeah. 2 of them can.
2.
Thomas. We might be a little too young, but don't forget the Anita Hills.
Thomas
Anita
B.
Hill.
Rapey?
Dude, Anita Hill.
Oh.
Where Biden sat on, where Biden was the Senate Judiciary Committee leader. Yes. Yeah. That guy flashed his dick to her, allegedly, and showed her animal porn and asked her repeatedly on many dates.
Those are 2 wildly different things. How do you get from whipping your dick out to animal porn?
Bro,
I don't even understand the segue.
She literally called them, she testified in front of the court, and Biden and many other leaders were like, "Are you a scorned woman? Do you love going after proud, men and ruining their," like they treated her, they trashed her.
I remember the Anita Hill thing.
Yeah,
I just don't remember it was Thomas.
Oh, that's Clarence Thomas. And by the way, he was only 42 years old when he got nominated, which is why he's been on the court.
Crazy young.
Oh, that's why he's like 70 now, and he's been on the court since 1990.
At least he was young until Amy Coney Barrett got on the court.
He was younger than her. He was 48.
Was she really?
Yeah, she was.
I thought she was in like 41.
No, she was like 48.
Yeah, but she doesn't have a dick to whip out, so it's like.
Yeah. She just only has, she just only comes from a crazy ass.
Orthodox Catholic, I think is the term, which is completely made up.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that means.
No, it means a Catholic with racist flavoring. That's really what it is. And anti-women. No.
I thought it was like, hey, you got diddled, and that's just how it goes, Tommy.
Kind of like that.
Yeah. That's some wild Catholicism, bro.
So, I mean, as a gun owner and as a liberal, I think that as somebody who, believes in fucking science, we should have a informed, scientifically backed, statistically relevant debate.
We're not even allowed to ask questions right now because we don't know what questions to ask.
Because we have no information.
We have 0 information.
So in the 90s, there was this thing called the Dickey Amendment, and it was written by a motherfucker named Dick, because he was a dick. Is the name of a senator, and the Dickey Amendment basically did not allow, it didn't explicitly ban, but it threatened funding. And so the CDC, since then, has never, and basically has not been allowed to, study gun violence nationally in America.
There have been private organizations and like NGOs that have tried to do it, but every time you do it, every time they put out numbers, they get discredited because they're not a recognized institution.
Or their scope isn't large enough.
Or their scope isn't large enough.
Because they don't have the money.
Because they don't have the money.
Right.
Or the funding or the training to do so.
So the FBI can tell you how many vending machines have killed Americans, but we don't know how many cops have shot people or how many people exactly died from gun violence and in what context.
And those are 2 very different deaths. If I get shot by someone, that's fucked up.
Yes.
It's fucked up to get shot in broad daylight.
But if I got killed by a vending machine,
you
it's
deserve
kind
that.
of my fault.
You deserve that.
Yes.
Because you didn't need the Fritos, buddy. No.
Also, like, evolution really just kicks into effect here.
I don't even know. Is that like the vending machine fell and crushed you, or like you get stuck in a vending machine and it's late and nobody helps you?
God, I really wish it's the first one. Because the second.
No.
The second.
I hope it's the second one. I hope it's the second one.
What a brutal way to go.
Yeah. I hope it's like in a fucking gym or something.
I imagine like when we trash the planet, there'll be and like a future humans will discover this man and he'll be a skeleton with his arm around Fritos. And of course, because they're surrounded by a plastic bag, the Fritos will have never disintegrated.
No.
You know?
And they'd be like, this was their god.
Yes.
We too shall pray to Frito-Lay.
But we actually, I think it's 96% of Americans believe in universal background checks. 66% of Americans believe that we should have stricter gun laws.
Right.
The Pew shows that the variation between gun owners and non-gun owners is very little. Maximum of only like 5% on a lot of issues, like banning people who are mentally ill from having guns, on universal background checks, on high capacity magazine bans, on assault rifle bans.
Oh, that one's getting peeled back too.
Oh, and of course.
In California specifically.
Because of the federal circuit.
Yeah.
And so the national debate is way more polarizing than when actual Americans actually believe. So it's just like it's like you're trying to have a conversation with a bunch of people, and most of you agree on this topic or agree on some key issues, but you've all been convinced, and we've all been convinced that we agree on nothing. And the reason why this happens is because of the NRA. The NRA, which loves to claim that it's the oldest civil rights organization.
Are they technically listed as a nonprofit too?
Oh, of course they're a nonprofit. Yeah.
That's so fucking infuriating.
Yeah. I mean, the whole nonprofit system is...
Yeah, the NCAA is nonprofit too.
Yeah,
I get it. It's
the
bullshit.
nonprofit system is literally where billionaires go to fucking wash their money.
Not to say there's not good NGOs. There are. It's just
it's a broken system.
They're diamonds in the rough, buddy.
Right. They're definitely... It's definitely a broken system. But
no, but you're right. The NRA is like bought and paid for both sides of the aisle. That's why both sides of the aisle, when it really comes down to shit,
but they frame themselves as a individual, they frame themselves as a gun owners activist group.
They're not. They're lobbyists
for ginormous industries.
Oh yeah, which industries? By the way, this is kind of important.
Clarify
which industries?
Gun manufacturing.
So the people
industries.
who make the guns.
Yes.
So the people who make the guns are paying these people, the NRA.
Right.
And they're like, hey, don't restrict guns. We want more guns.
Right.
And nobody smells fucking fish there.
No. And they're invited by liberal media. They're invited. I wouldn't say CNN is liberal media, but they're invited by mainstream media as NRA versus gun advocacy people. Like, it is...
Like, why are they in the conversation?
It is just the most...
why is there stinky pussy organization in the conversation?
Right. And the whole point of a national debate is, well, a genuine one, is that when two people with differing ideals are trying to genuinely find a solution, national discourse brings about an ideal compromise.
Mm-hmm.
It brings about a national conversation that is trying to fix the problem.
In theory.
But the problem is that the NRA, which is a gun manufacturer, it's an industrial lobbying firm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Their money comes from the fact that these companies need to sell guns and bullets.
They're literally just doing a job.
They cannot support any law that restricts them.
Them saying that you have a right to a gun is the same as like a barista pouring your coffee.
Right.
Or a teacher grading your homework. They're doing their job.
And so
they don't really give a fuck.
And also they're, unlike a teacher or unlike a barista, they get a cut of the gun sales. Like Sig Sauer, Bushmaster, Remington, they all get like $1 or $2 a gun sale, or get an NRA membership for free.
So they incentivize them with profit sharing?
Yes.
So there's more socialism in the NRA than there is a fucking teachers union?
Yes.
That's infuriating to me. That's so fucking infuriating, bro.
See, the way the conservative movement goes is that socialism, a social safety net, wealth distribution, it's all bad.
Unless it's for me.
And for corporations like me as well, yes.
It's for me and my 10 white friends.
Yes. We can gamble with all your money and we will back it up, but God forbid a black woman gets welfare.
No.
There is kind of just this fuckery. I mean, this happened after Sandy Hook. This happened after the Stoneman Douglas, the Parkland shooting,
Uvalde.
I mean, over and over again.
It's been like 30 mass shootings just in 2023 alone. I mean, some crazy.
We are making this episode in the wake of the Monterey Park.
Yeah,
and
that's the most recent one.
Pig Bay or some. I don't remember the other shooting. Something Moon Bay.
There's been too many.
I can't keep track.
There's one a month. like a big headline one of the month,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
the
Like the one
media
that garners the attention of the
one that
media.
garners the
Yeah.
attention, and then there's like the aftershock one,
Well, I
which
mean,
is like 3 more. So it's like they'll get like a 7 1, then a 4, and a 3.
right.
So it usually comes in waves of like 3 or 4 because that's the algorithm dictating attention span.
There is, I mean, there is some good news about this, which is that the individual can't, of course, there's a journalistic responsibility that they should stop bringing on the NRA to have reasonable gun debate about
Yes.
how to make American
Yes.
society safer. Because till this day, self protection or self defense is the primary reason why people cite owning a gun.
Mhm.
It's the reason why I own a gun. And it's the reason why many other Americans own a gun. And that's backed up by Pew and Gallup.
It's also the hardest reason to like combat.
Right. So if we're going to have a national
Especially-
debate, we're going to have a national debate on how to make America safer.
Yeah.
We can't invite the people who want to sell more guns to the debate. Dude, it's like inviting the pharmaceutical company to talk about the opioid problem and how do we fix it when the motherfuckers are causing it. It's just baffling to me. You know, you can't
insane.
bring the cartel into the conversation on how
how
do
to
we
get
reduce
sober.
childhood fucking
Yeah.
drug addiction. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
no, you're responsible for this crap. And so, no, I don't want Budweiser in the Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, and I don't want NRA in the fucking national debate. And so we have to kind of, this is a pretty simple solution. Yes, there's a journalistic responsibility,
100%.
but there's also,
You think they pay the media too?
I mean,
I don't know if we can data back this up.
I'm not sure.
I'm putting on my
I'm not sure.
conspiracy cap right now, dude.
We don't need the conspiracy cap. We really don't. I mean, it's a pretty solid narrative. I mean, we know that the companies donate millions of dollars to the NRA, and the NRA makes millions of dollars off advertising from these companies, and so there's a clear line incentive. There's no doubt about that. And really, what it comes down to is that individual people can do something about this, which is that they just simply take the NRA's lobbying power in Washington very seriously, which is what most Americans do. But then something that most Americans do not do is that they should stop taking the NRA's arguments seriously. The biggest one we hear is that the only way to stop a good guy with a gun is a bad. The only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. In fact, that's complete bullshit because one, how do you tell who's a good guy and who's a bad guy? And two, it really just sounds like you're trying to sell two guns.
And 3, it's statistically proven that it doesn't help, or like empirically improved,
Right.
Or anecdotally. You can want to go anecdotally. Uvalde.
Right.
How many good guys with guns were standing outside that fucking classroom doing jack shit
While they were arresting parents for
While they were
screaming
arresting
at
shit.
them
In
for
the
not
park-
storming the building.
at the Parkland shooting? Okay, there was a cop, campus security at
Didn't he fucking
school.
run off camera?
He ran off.
the scene or something.
one of the dudes. I'm forgetting his name, but he's like a gun rights activist now. He's going through. He's just making the rounds being an activist, and like he was on a stream once, and he said he remembers seeing him every day, and he remembers his face as he was running away.
I mean,
He remembers that, and then he remembers seeing his classmates get killed.
this guy, these police officers, who by the way are paid and have benefits and have a
Right.
pension and have a
Yeah.
union, and their sole fucking job is to stop a school shooter. This is literally why we have thousands of cops in schools who shouldn't be there
No,
and have yet to prove their
No.
value.
every time that more cops get policed in schools or metal detectors get policed in schools, it's an excuse to harass black kids,
They've,
black and brown kids.
they've
That's all
never
it is.
successfully stopped a fucking shooting.
Never successfully stopped a shooting with a good guy with a gun. You'll maybe find one example of like there's a dude in a mall who got into a beef, and then another good guy with a gun had it, but like it was Texas, so everyone had like it's
You know, Monterey, the Monterey Park shooter, he was stopped by people without guns.
yeah,
Parkland-
just a fucking dude,
The Parkland shooter ran away off
Mhm.
off scene and was just captured later.
100%.
So I mean,
And now every time this happens, police get more funding because of it, because we need to combat the gun problem. We need to combat the gun problem. We need more guns to combat the gun problem.
and do you think it's a coincidence that after mass shootings, when the NRA, first of all, calls the good guy with a gun, bad guy with a gun bullshit, then they say, oh, we need to arm teachers,
Mhm.
which, yeah, that's what we really need.
You know what else happens after mass shootings? Gun sales go through the fucking roof because
Right.
they do two things. One, they do this, that everyone needs guns. Two,
Right.
they're going to take away your guns. They're going
Right.
to take away your guns. They create scarcity and scare and terrify people into saying that you're not going to be able to buy
This is why
something.
sales jump.
Sale. Buy it now. Buy
Right.
it now.
Before
need an
Obama,
AR-15.
who is no longer the president, will
Yeah. Before
fucking still
Obama
take
will
your
come
gun.
through and take your guns, which is fucking insane to me, dude.
I think what's
Here's another statistic. Sorry, I'll cut you off.
no,
but
go ahead.
There's a wild fucking statistic that in 2020, More school-age children died from guns than cops. Police officers voluntarily.
Wait. Wow.
School-age children, meaning that like the ages of like 6 to 18. So we're talking like kindergarten, high school, right? And we're not talking in classrooms. We're talking just like in life. But more of them died than cops.
Do they count the
What
kids
kind of world
that
do we
were
live in?
killed by cops?
That's part of it. Yeah.
Fuck me.
And of course, that statistically, both your point and at a whole, affects black people at a higher rate.
Oh my God.
Disproportional rate is the actual phrase that she used.
Honestly, this is a pretty simple solution.
What kind of world do we live in where like our populace shoots at kids more than police officers?
Right. I mean,
not that you should shoot at cops.
No,
but like,
no,
I
you
at least
shouldn't.
get it. Like you trying to get away.
Right.
What's the kid gonna do to you?
No, I mean it's the real problem is that too many Americans, and we've been lied to by the media, but too many Americans take the arguments that the NRA makes seriously, and they just shouldn't. They just simply shouldn't. We shouldn't listen to anything they say. If you're a gun rights activist, go listen to your insert state name here, Rifle and Pistol Association. That's a far better gun rights activist group.
Far better.
You know, and so like. It is just baffling to me how we live in America where the right to own a gun supersedes the right to live in a society and not be shot by one, you know? And so we basically need to move towards an America in which we remove the NRA from the public conversation. We stop taking their arguments seriously.
Put actual money into the government to actually study guns.
We need actual data that is comprehensive and national so that we can study what the fuck works and what the fuck doesn't work so we can have an informed debate. And frankly, speaking to the liberals, which most likely are a majority listening, that we should push the narrative year after year to getting rid of this amendment, which is, can we just fucking admit, is a asinine amendment. It is a asinine amendment that was written in a time where the fastest information moved was on horseback. It is an asinine amendment.
It's so fucking old. It's retarded.
Rogan has made this joke 1,000 times, where if these founding fathers were to have come to our future, they would literally have been like,
"You didn't write any new shit?"
Right. This is the new shit.
Dude,
that
we told you to write new shit.
Exactly. This is why we have amendment systems. You know, and so that's really it. We have to push the narrative forward. We have to reframe the national conversation around a bunch of shit that Americans agree on. A super majority of Americans agree on.
But I think we should also agree that school-age children deaths should be nowhere near anyone else's death rate.
Right. And
not that there's an acceptable number of dead cops, but you guys know what I mean.
And if it starts to talk like a duck and walk like a duck and quack like a duck, then maybe it's a fucking duck. And if the number of guns are also directly correlated with the number of fucking gun fatalities, maybe it's time to admit what we're all fucking seeing, which is that there are way too many guns in America and it's way too easy to get them. And that's all the time we have. This has been Libtards and Shy with Max and Monsoor. Make sure to join us again next week for an all-new episode.
Please remember to like and subscribe on YouTube, TikTok, and wherever you listen to podcasts.
Wherever you are and whenever you are, have a good morning, good evening, and good night.